How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another Christmas episode. Today I'll show you how to make poppy seed rolls. Rolls like these are traditional in many countries. Sometimes it's made into a loaf, which you can also do with this recipe, but I think individual buns are even better. Now, we're not skimping on the poppy seeds. These things are packed. This is how you would show your wealth back in the day. Nowadays poppy seeds are cheap, so we can all pretend that we're wealthy. So let's get right to it and see what we need. We need some strong white bread flour, yeast, salt, sugar, an egg, some milk, some vanilla paste or vanilla syrup, lemon zest, and soft butter. And that's all for the dough. Now for the filling, we need some poppy seeds, butter, sugar, lemon zest, milk. Then to glaze, we'll need an egg. And for decoration, some icing sugar, lemon juice, some sliced almonds, candied peel, poppy seeds, and some freeze-dried raspberries. So we've got our dough, the filling, the glaze, and the decorations. Now on to the equipment. We'll need a tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, temperature probe, a brush, need a rolling pin, a grater for the zest, a serrated knife, very important, and a little pot for cooking our filling in. Let's just start with the easiest part, the sugar icing. Simply take the icing sugar and mix it with lemon juice until it's nice and smooth. You can of course leave the buns naked. Don't do any decorations, they look fine as they are. I just wanted to dress them up a bit for Christmas. If you do make the icing, be sure to scrape the sides of the bowl down so it doesn't get crusty, and then cover it up with some cling film so it's touching the surface. Or you can simply make it just before you need it, and then you won't have to worry about covering it up. I just had too much time on my hands. Now let's get on to the filling. This is where we'll need another piece of equipment. We need to grind these poppy seeds up. And you've got a few options. A pestle and mortar. It'll take some elbow grease, but it works. You could also use a stick blender in a tall cup. I'm going to use this smoothie maker. It's super powerful. A coffee grinder would work perfectly as well. But whatever you use, make sure you grind them up properly. Now if you leave the poppy seeds whole, they'll be gritty. They won't be very pleasant to eat. And it would take different cooking time as well. So don't try and skip this step, because I've done it before and it just doesn't work that well. So with that out of the way, grab your pot, add the lemon zest, the sugar, the butter, and the milk. Let's bring this over to the stove and bring it up to a boil. And you want to use a small pot, otherwise the liquid is going to evaporate too much. To change the flavor, you could use some orange zest, or add a little bit of cocoa powder to this if you'd like. But regardless of what you do, once it comes up to a boil, add the poppy seeds. Then mix it up well and turn the heat down low. And we want to cook this for around 10 minutes, mixing occasionally. The paste should become nice and thick. It should be nice and glossy as well. And this looks just about right. Now let's transfer this to a bowl and leave it to cool down completely. I actually made it a day ahead of time and refrigerated it. Keep in mind that in the fridge it's going to go solid. So you want to take it out and let it come up to room temperature for several hours before you use it. I took it out of the fridge once I started making the dough. And speaking of the dough, it starts with a sponge. Combine part of the milk with all of the yeast and part of the flour. This is a quick pre-ferment used to make the dough extra nice and airy. To simplify it, you can of course skip this step and add these ingredients to the main dough. But this will make it extra nice and fluffy. And it doesn't take that much more effort. After you mix the sponge, cover it up and leave it to proof for around 1 hour. It should almost triple in volume, be nice and airy. And this is looking perfect. Now we can continue on. Add the egg, the rest of the milk, the salt, the lemon zest, the sugar, and the vanilla paste. You can also use vanilla essence or fresh vanilla bean. Fresh vanilla bean is always the best, but the paste is more convenient. Essence is not the best option. But if that's all you can get, then use it. Mix all the ingredients well. You want to dissolve the salt and sugar before adding the flour. Then add the remaining flour, grab your scraper and mix this to a dough. Mix it in a bowl until there's no more dry flour left. And if the scraper's not doing the job, continue on by hand. Now pop it out on the table and we can start kneading it. This dough is not sticky at all, so use the regular kneading method. This is only the first part of the process. We want to knead this dough for around 3 minutes just to get the gluten going. Because there's one ingredient that we haven't added yet, the butter. Adding it later into the process makes it easier to incorporate it into the dough. It would have been impossible to knead this if we added the butter straight from the beginning. Right, so this is how it works. Put your butter on your dough, fold it in, and then squeeze it together. Really go for it, don't hold back. This is known as tearing in the fat. We're trying to force the two together. Give it about a minute. Once it's more or less combined, we can scrape it all up and continue kneading, just as we did before. But don't get discouraged if it's sticky and messy, it's completely normal. It will come together as you knead it. And from this point, you want to knead for another 4 minutes. And by the time you're finished, the dough should be all in one bowl and nice and smooth and not sticky at all. And that's how you effectively add butter to a dough when kneading by hand. Now let's shape this up into a nice tight ball, pop it into the bowl and take its temperature. Around 26 degrees Celsius is just about right for this. If your dough is warmer, it will rise more quickly. If it's cooler, it will take longer. I'm going to cover this up and leave it for an hour and a half. It should rise a bit during the first proof. And after the first proof, we're going to give it a fold. Folding will help with degassing the dough and equalizing the temperature in it. It will also give it extra strength. And this is how you do it. Take your dough out of the bowl, place it smooth side down on the table and flatten it out. Now take the two sides and cross them over in the middle. Then fold down the top, turn it around and fold over the remaining piece. We're folding it into a particular way because we want it to be kind of squarish. Because later on we're going to roll this to a large rectangle, and making it already kind of square will make that job easier. So back in the bowl it goes, smooth side pointing up, cover it up and leave it to proof for another hour and a half. And now it should really start puffing up. Now we can start doing the final shaping. Dust your dough with flour generously, take it out the bowl, place it on the table smooth side down. Now flatten it out by hand. Whenever I need to roll out a piece of dough, I always start it up by hand. You get it into a general shape. It just makes things easier going down the line. Once it's nice and flat, grab your rolling pin and roll it out to a large rectangle. Don't worry about measurements, it's not that important, just don't make it too wide, but be sure to make it nice and long. Finish squaring it off and organizing it by hand. Try to make it as even as you can, with straight edges. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but take your time and do it right. Now take the filling and instead of spreading it on from the get-go, distribute it evenly all over the dough. This way you'll be sure to get even coverage, and you won't distort the dough too much by spreading the filling out. All you need to do now is fill in the gaps. And again, try to make it as even as possible, and spread it as close to the edge as you can, but leave a gap at the top. We'll use that to seal up the roll, so brush it with a little bit of water. Okay, now we're ready to roll. And if you've ever made cinnamon buns before, this process will be very familiar to you. Fold over the bottom edge and roll it gradually forwards. And once again, there's no rush. Try to make it nice and even. And every time you roll it forwards, pull it back towards yourself to make it nice and tight. If the remaining dough starts getting too narrow, stretch it out and only then continue rolling. You don't want it overlapping in a weird way, it should be nice and straight. Alternatively, you can push the sides of the roll together and then continue rolling. Once you get to the edge, make sure it's nice and straight and then seal it up. The water will act as glue, it will make this dough stick together. And to really make sure that it doesn't go anywhere, pinch the seam from end to end. And from this point you have a choice really. You can make separate rolls like I did, or you could leave this whole, place it in a cake tin with some non-stick paper and bake it as a whole loaf. It will take twice as long to bake, so keep that in mind. And I guess you could also make this into a babka. Slice it lengthways, twist it around itself, and then place it in a cake tin. I'm making rolls, so this is the next step. Take a chopping board, dust it with flour, place your roll seam side down, and then dust the top of it with flour as well. A nice serrated knife is a must for this. We want to saw it, not slice it. Cutting the ends off is optional, but they're mostly empty dough. This roll will make 6 large buns, so divide it in half, and then divide each half into 3. And do not distort the roll. Cut it in the sawing motion, don't press the knife straight down, go back and forth. And if it gets sticky with the filling, wash it and then continue. It's very easy to squish these buns, and that would just be frustrating, trust me. Now clean down the mess, get your tray with the non-stick paper, and the next step's up to you. You can place the buns closer together if you want. That would make the sides a little bit softer, although they will be soft regardless. Or you can do what I do and leave some decent gaps between them. This way you won't have to separate them, and they will all have a nice round shape. Before you cover them up, press them down so they're all the same height. Final proof should take an hour and a half to 2 hours. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven, 160 degrees Celsius with a fan on. That's 320 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. And they are puffed up beautifully. If yours don't look like this, leave them for longer. There's one more thing we need to do before baking. Brush them with the egg. Be nice and gentle, you don't want to distort them. Brush them once, then get back to the first one and brush them again. Now let's pop these bad boys in the oven. They'll take around 20 minutes. And once they're golden brown all over, they're ready. Always love watching these time lapses. And those buns have risen beautifully. But which one is it though? Rolls or buns? I guess it's a roll because you roll it, but I always want to call them buns. I don't know why. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Now these things are perfect as they come out of the oven. You can eat them like this. They're beautiful, you don't have to take it any further. But if you want to dress them up for Christmas, then here's what we're going to do. Make sure your icing is nice and smooth, mix it up one last time with a fork. Then grab a bun and add a dollop of it. But don't go too crazy, it will spread out quite a lot. If you put too much icing, it will run down the sides and be all messy. Of course, if that does happen, simply wipe down the side of the bun. The sugar to lemon juice ratio in this icing will give you the exact right consistency. So add a dollop in the middle of the bun and then spread it out lightly. Then just sprinkle it with any little toppings that you like. And that is how you make poppy seed rolls, or poppy seed buns. Call them what you want, they still taste the same. And I can tell you it's a very unique flavor if you've never tried them before. I for one love it. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. And if you have any questions or suggestions, also let me know. And check out the Breads of Christmas playlist, because it's full of delicious festive recipes from all over the world. And click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if you love bread and baking, you've come to the right place. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.